Well, hey guys, I am here tonight with Neal from BigfootTalk.com, and he has a place in northern Georgia that he is cohabitating with Bigfoots, and he's going to tell us about that tonight. So, hi Neal.
Hello, how's everybody doing tonight?
Wonderful. How you doing?
So I'm doing good. Um, Let me start off by giving a little history on myself. When I was young, my parents had, um, I don't know, about 80 or 90 acres, but there's a lot of acres next to it. And I was in the woods all the time. I love being out in the woods, playing around, watching the wildlife, listening to them, and then if you sit there and watch the wildlife long enough, you learn from them how they make sounds to do warning of danger, and they make different sounds. Squirrels make different sounds for different type danger or different type things.
Mhm.
Like if a deer's eating their acorns, they're just screaming at them. If it's a hawk or an owl, they'll give one loud yell and then they all freeze and hush up. And then they'll give another loud one when it's gone and then start doing their normal chatter after the danger's gone. So when you're out there long enough, you can put all this together.
Mhm.
And one of my arch enemies was the crows. The crows can see color, and anytime you would hunt, you would have to wear orange. They would go and they would circle an area and they would spot you and they would let every animal know that you were there.
Mhm.
Hated crows. They were the ultimate detective. But because I did that and I hunted for a long time, I was able to know all the wildlife in the area, how they acted with each other and interacted with each other. And if I can do that in a short period of time, I'm sure animals that are out there all the time can pick up on that and much, much more, like Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So, about 10 years ago, we purchased some property in North Georgia. And at the time, it was an abandoned
Papa.
piece of property. It was overgrown. Everything had to be cleaned up. And I'd always wanted to have some property for a retirement home. So, this was going to be the retirement home. It had two creeks on it, an old pond that had dried up, and the banks of the creeks were 12 to 14 foot deep because it had run so long, and when it would flood, a lot of water would drain into it and cause the banks to be really deep. But after we got a lot of stuff cleaned up, I started planting fruit trees, started putting food out for the deer. I would put clover out for the deer because I used to love deer.
Mhm.
When I was young, I hunted them,
Mhm.
but my wife does not like for me to hunt deer. She started naming them and
Oh.
calling them. And my dad always told me, he said, if you're not going to eat them, don't shoot them. And that was fine with me because
Mhm.
I love to just watch them. I just love to watch nature. So we planted clover. We would get stump feeders, which is a gravity type feeder, and put different supplements in them so that we could watch them in the morning or the afternoon. And my wife, she would just go on the bad sports and say, "Hey, little deer," and they would just wag their tail, look at her, and continue eating. They kind of build a bond with us.
Mhm.
But we also put out bird feeders. We filled the pond back up and put fish in it. And we fed the fish. We were just basically feeding all the animals.
Mhm.
Well, after we had been here several years, I had seen some things on the property that made no sense. Now, in the area that we are, there's no bear. The way the creeks are, they block people from getting on the property because the banks are so steep and it's blocking from the road to the property. So people don't really come into here. But I'd seen some things that had to be done by hand.
Mhm.
I didn't see any footprints of people. I didn't see anything out of the norm, but I knew whatever did this had to have hands. Um, and bear don't have hands, but bears can push things around, but we didn't have any bears anyway. So I just put that in the back of my mind, but it was just curious because I knew all the wildlife that was in the area, and nothing could have done it unless it had hands. So I was confused by it.
Mhm.
One Christmas of 2019, my children bought me a life-size cutout of Bigfoot painted black. Now, growing up, I was always open-minded and intrigued by all the cryptid animals. You know, Loch Ness monster, Bigfoot. You know,
Yeah.
all of them. I was always interested in and would study and listen to. And with Bigfoot, I thought it was 50-50 that there were some Bigfoot alive. There was just too many prints people were seeing, too many sightings people were seeing. Every Indian tribe had names for them. Um, all these different countries were seeing them, calling them different names. How
Hmm.
can all these people be confused about it? But I never thought there would be any around here. I always thought they would be on the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Canada, in that area, if there
Right.
was any still alive.
Hmm.
Well, 2 weeks after that Christmas, we put the cutout in the backyard off the back porch so I could just look out there and look at it. 2 weeks after that, my wife had been watching a movie. I'd already gone to bed. She went on to the back porch. She got hot and wanted to go out there and cool off. And all of a sudden, to the right, if you use a clock, it would be about at 2 o'clock. Something whistled so loud that it shocked her. I mean, it was like louder than any person she had ever heard whistle. And she had people that would whistle real loud in high school, but it was louder than that. But she couldn't see anything. It was but just beyond the light. And how many times have we heard that?
Yeah.
When Bigfoot's around, they're just outside the light.
Right.
Then it then it moved to the left about 30 yards and whistled again. Now this time it was behind the bird feeder, which is behind that is where the cutout is, and it whistled again. Well, at the time she thought it must be one of the kids playing a prank on her, and she said, "Quit trying to play pranks on me." Now that we have dogs outside in a pen, the dogs after the first whistle were going nuts. They were jumping up and down on the fence. They were barking. They were just going crazy.
Hmm.
The next time it went another 20 to 30 yards, it was right next to the fence. It was within 5 yards of it and whistled again. Now that was crazy because the only wildlife I'd ever heard whistle in my life after years and years of being outdoors and hunting was a matriarchal doe that I called. She didn't have any idea I was there. And then when she saw me, she whistled to all the other does that was in her group and she took off. But no doe would ever get close to any dogs jumping up and down barking, even if it was in rut. If they were going that direction, as soon as the dogs would start barking, she'd take a 90-degree angle and go as fast as she
Hmm.
could away from the dogs.
Yeah, really.
They're just too scared of dogs.
Hmm.
Then it went down to the creek and whistled again. Now at this time, she knew that it couldn't be the kids. Nothing would go down there. None of the kids would go down there next to the creek in the woods with no flashlight or anything to be able to see. So she ran in the house, checked, and all the kids were asleep.
Hmm.
So she came and woke me up and said, "Come outside, come outside. Something's out here. Come outside." So I ran outside. She told me the whole story. Well, at the time, I didn't hear anything, but it didn't make sense. Like, I'm trying to figure out what could have done this. And what she's telling me, like the other stuff, didn't make sense. It just did not match up with any animals that I knew that would be in the area
Right.
that could do something like that. Then it got even uh, crazier. 2 weeks after that, at 4:47 in the morning, our bedroom has two windows, and our bed is in between those two windows. At 4:47 in the morning, something hit the brick wall of our house so hard that the entire house shook.
God.
It was crazy. My wife never wakes up when she's asleep. She woke up and goes, "What's that?" I said, "I have no idea." Now, Well, as soon as I open my eyes, I sleep lightly. I saw the picture. There's a heavy picture that's right above the bed. It's about 20 to 30 pounds. The top of it came out and then went back and hit the wall. Then the bottom came out and hit the wall. And I'm like, wow, whatever did that hit high up on the wall.
Yeah.
What could do that? So I really didn't have an idea what could do it, but I started going through my head, okay, what could do something like that? What could make the house shake and do that?
Hmm.
Well, you have an earthquake. An earthquake could do it, but I've been through an earthquake. An earthquake rolls under the house. It feels like a tidal wave going under the house.
Right.
This was high up on the wall. It could be a tree falling on the house, but
Hmm.
there's no storm outside, and the trees are not close enough to even hit the house even if it fell.
Hmm.
The next thing is a sonic boom. If a jet flies low enough and does a sonic boom, then it could do that, but you always hear the after effect of the jet. So it wasn't a jet. An animal hitting it could do it if it's a big enough animal like a wild hog or something like that. But this was high up on the wall. This was not low down on the wall. This was 9 to 10 foot up on the wall.
Wow.
So nothing made any sense of what could have done this. So I go get my iPad, go in the bathroom. I'm sitting down going to the iPad and I'm querying, trying to find out what could have done this. Does anybody else report anything? No reports of anything. No earthquake,
Hmm.
no disturbances. There were no reports. I'm like, wow, this is really crazy. So then the next morning, I go out there and look outside next to the wall that was hit, and all the grass was matted down. And about 9 to 10 foot up, right before you get to the whiteboard, right before the roof, all the dust was knocked off of it. Now you really couldn't see an outline of something, but you could tell something hit right there because all the dust was off
Hmm.
there in a round circle, and it was a huge circle, but all the dust was off there. So I'm like, wow, I'm 6'4" and got long arms. I reached up, I couldn't reach it,
Wow.
and so it was 9 to 10 foot up on the wall. So then I started thinking, okay, so what's going on here? My mind goes into overdrive. I've seen things happening on the property. No known animal that I know of in the area. It's got to have hands. The whistling going by, I'd heard the Bigfoot whistles before. The hitting on the house, I've heard that they do that before. Here the
Hmm.
grass is batted down. Here it's hit 9 to 10 foot up on the house.
Hmm.
So I went and got my iPad and I started querying. I put in the town that we were nearest to and said, put the name of the town in Bigfoot.
Hmm.
Well, BFRO report came up. And just reading it, it had to have been really close to our house because it was talking about some of the roads that it was near and some of the rivers that it was near. And by the description, it had to be close to the house. So
Hmm.
I said, okay, well, I met this guy in North Georgia that does, he's, I don't believe there is really any Bigfoot experts, because nobody really knows everything about them.
Right.
But this, if anybody was, he is,
Hmm.
because all the people report all that kind of stuff going on to him.
Hmm.
And so I was able to get his number and I called him because I wanted to see if he knew somebody in the BFRO, see if I could get them to tell me what that address was and go talk to these people, see if it was close to where I'm at.
Good idea. Yeah.
So he goes and he saw the name, and I didn't know he used to be a member of the BFRO.
Hmm.
He said, I know this person, but they don't do it any longer. And I have no idea where they are anymore. Um, but do you mind if I ask you some questions? And I said, sure, no problem. And honestly, he probably knew that if they don't give their thing, hiding their address, they can't do it anyway. So that might have been something he was just saying because even if he could find out, he couldn't tell me. But
Right.
he said, okay, so can I ask you some questions? I said, sure. He said, what's been going on around there that is strange, that makes you call and want to find out. So I told him about the whistling in the backyard. I told him about the wall being hit. He said, okay, let me ask you some questions. I said, okay. He said, do you feed the animals around where you're at? And I said, yeah, I feed them all the time. I feed the deer, I plant clover and stuff for the deer and rabbits, feed the birds, feed the fish, to feed basically all the wildlife
Mm-hmm.
because I love to see it, love to be around them. He said, how long have you been here? I said, we bought the property and we've been here several years. He said, okay. He goes, do you have any fruit trees or anything like that? I said, yeah, I planted a bunch of fruit trees. I planted apple trees, peach trees, pear trees. We have fig trees. We have pecan trees. We have blueberry bushes. And I said, and the only thing that's here, and we also have persimmon trees. I said, the only thing that I didn't plant is the fig trees and the pecan tree. I said, all the other stuff I planted. He said, okay. He goes, well, do you get any fruit on any of the fruit trees? I said, well, they're all young because I planted them as little saplings, young trees. I said, but we get peaches. I said, but the funniest thing happens. We put deer netting around it so the deer can't get to it. And we put fabric on the ground so that the grass wouldn't soak up all the water and stuff. So the trees would grow better. But every time I say we're going to go pick the peaches this weekend, when we go out there on Saturday, every peach is gone. There's not one on the fabric on the ground. There's not a seed on the ground. Some of them are 10 to 12 foot tall where the peaches were. They're gone, every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, okay. He goes, have you had other stuff disappear? I said, well, yeah, some of the figs disappear and the persimmons made some and they disappeared. Um, but I thought maybe birds or something like that, but birds usually will leave some part of it or eat it right there, and you'll see poop on the ground with seeds in it. And I said, I hadn't seen any of that. It's just gone. He said, okay. He said, do you hunt? And I said, I don't hunt. I said, I used to hunt, but I don't hunt anymore because my dad always told me if you're not going to eat it, don't shoot it. So we don't hunt. We just love to watch them. He said, okay. So I understand what's going on now. And I said, well, what do you think it is? What do you think's going on? He said, you know what it is. That's why you're calling me. He said, you have a Bigfoot. Well, that first off, that blew my mind. Okay.
Yeah.
So just by all this, he's telling me that we have a Bigfoot. So then, and I hadn't seen any tracks around because they're just masters of hiding them here if they want to. So anyway, I said, so what does it mean? He goes, they're trying to tell you that they're there and they want to coexist in peace with you. Well, that blew my mind. I mean, that blew my mind. How would a
Right.
person know something like that, right?
Yeah, really.
And so I asked him, I said, how do you know that? And he goes, well, let me ask you some more questions. I said, okay. He said, have you heard growling off your front porch or your back porch at night? No. Have you had something running by your house hitting the sidewalls 2 or 3 times several nights a week
Mm-hmm.
or any? No, we've never had that. Have you had any trees pushed down on your driveway? No, never had that. Have you had anything throwing pebbles or sticks or rocks on your roof or on your back porch roof or any barns you may have? No, don't have that. He said if they didn't want you there, that's what they would be doing. I said, okay. So I think what happened was the Bigfoot cutout, we put it out there, they saw it, and I think that they thought we knew they were there. So they took that opportunity to see if they had already been watching us for several years and knew we love wildlife. We didn't ever hurt them, but we fed them all the time. And so we think that they knew we were kind people and wasn't going to hurt them and wanted to see if they could coexist with us. So I think that cutout's what started it all by accident. But I decided, okay, I'm going to prove this. I'm not one, he's saying this and everything he's saying matches what I've seen and makes sense, but let me try to prove this. So what I did was I had seen two trails and I had no idea what made them. I mean, they were huge, they were wide, everything was smashed on the ground. It was like some elephants had been walking through there. Everything on the ground was smushed. And deer and other animal, they don't do that. They
Mm.
step on it. They may break a branch, but everything on the ground is not just smashed
Mm.
flat.
Right.
So what I did is right next to it, there was a tree. I took two nails that didn't have a head, reached up as high as I could and nailed them on the tree. And I put a red delicious apple on each nail. Then underneath it, I raked the leaves off, and underneath it, there were some old leaves and stuff like that that could compress pretty easy and it wouldn't bounce back up. So I
Right.
said, so I'm going to break off all this stuff and see if I can get a footprint, see if anything eats it and gets a footprint. Sure enough, the next day we go down there, the apples are gone, and there's a footprint underneath it that's about 16 inches long. I said, okay, so that's what we do have. So I started thinking, how can I learn about these creatures? What can I do? How can I learn about these creatures? Because I want to learn as much as possible about them because I know how secretive they are. And here, all of a sudden, we know that there's one here. It's eating the apples. And at the time, I just thought that they were like any other animal, the deer, the rabbits, the raccoons.
Mm-hmm.
You put stuff out for them to eat, they eat and go their own way. So I decided I would start feeding them. Bad move. I've never had anything negative happen, but from what I know now, I never would have started feeding them, except at the time I was just naive and thought that they were a regular animal.
Right.
So we had a couple of people come to kind of check out everything, and they went and found prints on the property. They found tree breaks. They found limb breaks. They found actually two bushes that had been tied together to make an arch. It was tied together. Found all kinds of stuff. And actually, on the house where it hit the house, one of the windows from the top left hand side of the window all the way to the roof, all the bricks have been broken. That's how hard the hit was on the house. It broke all the bricks from the top of the window corner all the way to the roof.
That's incredible.
So I just started thinking, what can I do um, to learn about them?
Mm-hmm.
So I kept putting apples down there, and I went down there one day and said, there's got to be more of them than just this one. So even if it's only one, two apples ain't going to feed up one. So I was looking around and I was thinking in my head, where can I put some more apples? Didn't see anywhere where I could put it on there that it would stay. There was nothing really level enough or big enough. So when I came down a couple of days later to put more apples on it, all of a sudden, right by the tree that I put the apples on, just back behind it a little bit, was some sticks they were stuck in the ground and went different directions and crossed and made like a teepee. And if you've ever seen a teepee on the top of where all the branches meet, it makes like a cup. And I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to see how smart they are. I'm going to take this apple, I'm going to put it up here on top. And it covered 3/4 of the red delicious apple. And I said, I'm going to see if they can find this. Come back the next day, it's gone. The apple's gone. I said, oh, they're pretty smart. But then I looked to the left. There's another one to the left of me. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. I know that one wasn't there. So then I went and started looking, and what they had done is they had broke branches, and the sharp end they had stuck in the ground. The first one, there was a vine that went up from the ground, went horizontal, and then went vertical again up in a tree. They had all those limbs pressed up against the flat part so they would give it something to hold it in place so they wouldn't fall over. They were 3 to 4 inches in the ground, and the top part was level and had been snapped off clean. They
Wow.
had made that and stuck that in the ground for me to put an apple on. And they did the same thing to the other.
They're so
Now,
smart.
at the time, I didn't know that they could read your mind, or even if somebody had told me that, I would have just not even thought about it,
Hmm.
but I clearly thought in my mind, and then it shows up the very next time. Here's another place to put it. But I will tell you, at first, I was a little bit insulted when I figured out that they did it, because it was so natural looking that if it hadn't been a situation where I was looking for a place to put it, I never would have known something made that. I would have thought that it's just a natural occurrence. But I was trying to test them to see how smart they were and could find the apple. And I put the apple right where they wanted me to put it. And so here I am thinking, who's the smarter here, me or them? Because I'm trying to test how smart they are, and I put the apple right where they wanted me to put it.
Hmm.
So I kind of felt dumb, but I kind of laughed and said, they're in the woods all the time. They've got to know how to do stuff like this to survive. I couldn't survive outside all the time, year after year, hot and cold, and snakes and all the stuff they have to deal with.
Yeah.
So then I said, well, let me try something different. So I started listening to things and heard that they like blue marbles.
Hmm.
So I went and got some blue marbles, and I put them on one of the stump feeders that was down there near that trail. And I put 9 marbles on it and left them on there. And I said, I'm going to leave these for them as a gift and see what happens. Now I'm saying this in my head, you know, and I'd already told my wife what I was doing. We go down there the next time, the marbles are gone. They're not there.
Huh.
Okay, so they got the marbles. That's really neat, right?
Hmm.
Well, the next time we go down there, to go down to that area, we've got a trail that we drive the side by side on, and it makes like a U, because you got the creek, you're going down one side of the creek, then you're going up on the other side along a fence next to a field. Well, right past or right next where those marbles were on the stump feeder, which is level on the top, on the right hand side, there is a huge river rock. It's about 100 pounds. There's another one on the left side of the trail that's probably 60 pounds. It's a different type of river rock, but it's a river rock. So my wife does all the mowing. She loves to mow. Thank goodness. And she goes, where did those come from? I said, I have no idea. Now, in my mind, I did not relate those to them gifting us back, because when I'd heard about them gifting people, I'd heard them gifting feathers, flowers,
Hmm.
taking sticks and tying them together, different things like that. I'd
Hmm.
never thought about them gifting us a huge rock as a gift. And, there were one on each side.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks later, we're driving back from my mom's house in another state. My wife's asleep in the car, and I started thinking, wait a second. The marbles I gave them are like a rock. They're hard and solid. They're just pretty and shiny.
Hmm.
And the rock is smooth and nice rocks. And maybe they did gift these boulders to us as a gift in return for the marbles.
Hmm.
So the next morning I get up, we got in late. I didn't even go on the trail. I shot through the yard. I wanted to go look at them again, see if I can look in the grass, see if I see any prints or anything. Of course, it was past the time you would see them, but just curious. They're gone. They're not there. Those
Hmm.
boulders are gone. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking in my head, well, nobody's going to carry these. Nobody's going to get these out of the creek because the banks are 12 to 14 foot deep. Who's going to go down there and pick these things up and bring them up here and put beside the road? Nobody's going to do that. So I'm going on up the trail, and there's a peach tree that they love to take peaches off of. It's their favorite one. It's the first one they take all the peaches off of.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest rock is right there next to it where my wife had just mowed in the open where the sun's shining on it. I'm like, they've moved it. They've moved this thing 40 to 50 yards and put it to make sure that we saw it. Then I drove around to the other side of the big U and we made a platform. We had a bunch of dirt brought in to make a platform so the kids could park their cars on it. And it's down at the base of the platform, probably 6 to 8 foot down where the trail is. The other one is on the right side of the trail, and they have another one just like it on the left side of the trail. So they gave us 3 rocks. So they had moved them so that they could make sure that we saw and got their gift. They had gifted us 2 huge river rocks, and it turned out to be 3 as a gift in return for the blue marbles. So then we took it a step further. We said, okay, so we know they like blue marbles.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make a plate. We got a glass pie plate, put white aquarium sand in it, and took blue marbles and made a smiley face. We took 9 marbles and made a smiley face and put it down on there and said, well, let's see what they do with these things. Now, again, at this time, I don't know that they can read your mind, but going looking back on it, it's amazing the ones we gave them as a gift, they took them, but these they never took, but they did do stuff with them.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a smiley face and put it down there. The first time we go down there, they pull the marbles to the bottom of the plate. Now, the stump feeder's level, so gravity wouldn't have pulled it down there, and we stuck them in the sand. We made another smiley face. They pulled them to the bottom of the plate. We made another smiley face. They pulled them to the bottom of the plate. I said, okay, I don't know what's doing this, but I'm tired of playing this game, you know.
Yeah.
So we went down there about a week, 2 weeks later, and we had left them at the bottom of the plate, and there was a smiley face. They were playing a game with me and pulling them to the bottom of the plate. And then when we quit playing, they made a smiley face because they wanted to keep playing with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, well, let's start playing some games. Let's see what they do. So I started making different shapes and see what they would do with them. And sometimes they would make a shape that was different than ours. But one time did a square. And again, we had 9 marbles. The top row had 3 marbles. The bottom row had 3 marbles. And on each side, in between the ones on the ends, was another marble. So each side had 3 marbles on it.
Mm-hmm.
What they did amazed me. It showed me how different they think than we do. The marble in the top in the middle was a lighter color blue than the one on the left and right. They had slid it down to make a nose. The one in the middle on the right side, they had slid it out a little bit. The one on the left side in the middle, they slid it out a little bit. And the one in the bottom middle, they slid it down a little bit. In 4 moves, they took that square and made a smiley face. No person would ever do that. A person would take every one of them and move them and make a smiley face. And the only reason I even caught how they did it was because that blue marble at the top that was in the middle, we got moved down to make the nose. And I started comparing pictures and I'm like, they only moved 4 marbles to do this. So I was amazed by that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I said, okay, so I'm going to make a platform and put food on it for them. That way I can see if I can start learning from them how they eat, how their social structure is. And at this time, we had built up enough trust that they quit hiding their footprints. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the ground is really hard, um, but you could see their impression in the grass. And at first, there were four of them. There was a mature male who wasn't there all the time. He would come and go. A mature female. There was a juvenile, and I think it was a little male. And then there was a little one that I think was a little female. Um, but there were only four of them.
Hmm.
So we built this platform. We put four 12-foot 4x4s in the ground and put cement on it. About 4 foot off the ground, we had made a plywood base. It had a hole in the middle because we were using scrap plywood, so it had a gap in the middle. And we also wanted to make sure if any water got on it and blown across it, it'd have a way to, get off of it to make the wood last longer. And then we put a roof on it to try to keep as much of the wind off of it as possible. I put 3 of the huge plastic containers like people use for Christmas time to put wrapping paper in. It's long and it's deep. 3 of those in a smaller plastic container. And I even made some wooden boxes because I was going to run a test. The top was at an angle and you could pick it up with your thumb to get inside of it because I wanted to put food in there to see if I can get fingerprints on the top. So I put a bunch of polyurethane layers on it so it was smooth and I'd get a good fingerprint.
Right.
Now, I will say they only went into that one time because they saw what I was doing and figured out what I was doing and didn't do it anymore. Because there's certain things they will let me do or will allow us to do without getting mad at us. It's a trust issue with them. They're really big on trust. And in the plastic containers, in the first one, I put 14 pounds of dog food. In the second one, I put 14 pounds of dog food. In the third one, I put a box of cereal, actually 2 boxes of cereal on each end of it because it was really deep. And then on the others, I put different things. I'd put a box of peanut butter crackers out. I would put a jar of peanut butter. I would put honey graham crackers out, and granola bars. And sometimes I would put apples out or not, but so I put a lot of stuff out for them. And the reason why I put dog food is they had one time I had a 35-pound bag of dog food on the back porch. It had been there for about a week and a half. Our cameras around the back porch and on the back driveway, the batteries went dead. Within 48 hours of it going dead, I really think 24, but I noticed the bag was gone in 48 hours. I asked all the kids, I asked everybody, where'd the bag of dog food go? And nobody had done it. Nobody had done anything with it. But all of a sudden, I started finding huge animal poops out in the woods near the trail and near the places that we go. And when I'm talking about huge, it was like 3/4 around the size of a Pringle can and anywhere from a foot to 1.5 feet long.
Wow.
And there's no animal that does that. I mean, that's huge, but they were leaving it for me to find it as if that was my gift back for the dog food. So evidently they took the dog food. Even the guy that went to work on the pump by one of the creeks, we were pumping water from one of the creeks into the pond. There was a huge poop there. And on his way out, there was a huge poop on the trail, right in the middle of the trail, and it was still steaming. And he called me and said, "Hey, do you have any big dogs or anything out here? Because I just found a poop out here and I've never seen anything that big in my life. And there was one over by the pump." I said, "No, but I think I know probably what it is." And he knows what it is now. So that's how I knew they like dog food. So then I put the dog food and stuff out. And then I started realizing that they do things different than us. For example, I put a entire one or two entire boxes of peanut butter crackers out. And the way they would do it was they were Lance peanut butter crackers. There was a hole in the top so you could see the stuff. Where we would open it at the end and slide them out, they would take their hand down in the hole and just rip it on the side and pull it out the side.
Wow.
And a lot of the stuff I would leave in the package. And I would do that for a reason. I would do that so I could tell what was eating it. Um, Squirrels and other animals, you're going to see claw marks. You're going to see where they were eating it with crumbs everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The way they would do it is they grab it from the side. Not we grab it from the end and rip it. They were grabbing it from the side, and their hands and fingers are so strong it just rips open. So you couldn't see any claw marks. You couldn't see any teeth marks, anything like that, because they would just pull them open
Yeah.
and eat it. So I could tell basically what was getting it by the package, how they got into the package.
Amazing.
At one time, I did have some raccoons getting up there.
Mm-hmm.
So the raccoons, they are able to clasp things a little bit. So I wanted to make sure I knew that it was a Bigfoot and not raccoons. So what I did was I took sheet metal and ran around the legs and then put like an upside down cap, sort of like a cap the Tin Man had in the Wizard of Oz,
Uh-huh.
a metal thing, so that the raccoons couldn't climb up on the wood. And even if they could, they couldn't reach over that to get up there.
Right.
So, to keep them off. But so I did all kind of stuff like that and started seeing things that they did.
Mm-hmm.
But then it changed. All of a sudden, they started marking trails again. Now, remember, the people that came and looked at the property said that they had been here for a long, long time. So I'm like, why are they marking the trails now? And what they did was, I had noticed that they marked trails by lighter color branches.
Mm-hmm.
Evidently, the lighter colors they can see better at night.
Mm.
They would even strip the bark off of tree limbs and put it down on the ground to mark trails, but the bottom side still had the bark on it. But you could see where it was pulled down, and it would be pointing from a trail to another trail.
Right.
And somewhere they found some 10-foot white PVC pipes, and they put it on the trail, pointing towards the gifting station and pointing towards the big trail where I put the apples. And I'm like, why are they marking trails? They've been here for a long time. Then I started noticing more footprints. There were more baby prints. There were more juvenile prints. There was still the one mom print, and the dad still would come and go. But then I started hearing blue jays. Now, back where I grew up, we had blue jays, but in this house, we have blue birds. We don't have blue jays. I'm starting hearing all these blue jay calls around. And I'm like, what is going on? We don't have blue jays. I'm hearing blue jays. There were 2 to 3 baby prints, and most of the baby prints are 4 inches long, 2 inches wide, maybe 5 and 3. But that's the baby print.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would see juvenile prints. They would be anywhere from 8 to 10 inches long in different widths. Then the mature mom, and there were 2 to 3 of those. And then I realized they had made it a nursery. So they were taking little ones in here because there was a food supply for them. It was a safe zone where they didn't get messed with. And they had made it a nursery. Every 8 to 10 months,
Mm-hmm.
little ones would come and be dropped off. Then
Wow.
they would be taken off. And then a couple of months later, some more new ones, little ones would be dropped off.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a mom, a mature mom. They had 2 to 3 juveniles helping her and 2 to 3 babies. And they were here just making it a nursery for them to where they could get old enough. Then they could go back with their original parents, and they had enough wisdom and all that they could do stuff on their own and not have to be, taken care of, a
Yeah,
lot of time spent taken care of.
that makes sense. Yeah.
So I thought that was amazing. But what was really funny was I started noticing like the pipes. There was a pipe even broken in a tree, but it was broken like into like 4 foot long. It was pointing up in a bush into a tree. And I went and bent over and looked where it's pointing, and it was pointing at a huge hornet's nest. And I'm like, wow, they're even marking danger
Yeah.
so that the new ones don't get
Mhm.
near the hornet's nest or start shaking the tree with the hornet's nest. They're marking danger too. They're not only marking trails, they're marking danger too.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was just crazy all the stuff that they did. Then we started asking them to show us stuff that they could do, and they did. There were different things that they would show us. Um, and we learned that they either understand English or they understand your mind thinking about what you're saying. Because one day, this is how smart they are.
Hmm.
We're down at the pond, my wife and I, and here's where the mature mom stepped out of the pond onto the ground, but the ground's so hard that you see an outline of her footprint. Now, her footprint at that time was 13 inches long and 8.5 inches wide.
Wow.
And when she stepped out, she, of course, pressed down on the ground and all the leaves went with her foot. So it made a perfect outline of her footprint. Well, I said to my wife, I sure wish that they would give us some better prints so I can take better pictures of them. And all of a sudden, at about 30 yards away, behind a little hill, a limb snapped. And I turned to her and said, well, I guess they just got the message. So
Mm.
Wednesday after that, I went down to the gifting station, and down there by the gifting station, right by where we parked, her foot had been pressed in the ground on hard clay, indented it some, and there was a blue marbles underneath the gifting station, and that's a different story itself how they got there. But it had sand and everything on it. They one of them had taken it and tipped it like a slot machine and just dropped it through the hole. And then took all the sand, wiped it off the marble, and put it in the footprint as if to say, "Here's your footprint." Now, I don't know because other places say that they can understand them. So I don't know if they can understand all the languages or if they can understand what your brain is telling you to tell them. So I really hadn't got that part figured out. But it heard me and then it left me a print to give me what I asked for. So I thought that was amazing in itself.
Absolutely.
Now,
Definitely.
back to the gifting station,
Hmm.
I'll tell you something that happened that was really neat. So I knew that at first the bag of dog food they took was chicken flavor. So, but I said they like fish, so let me try this salmon flavored dog food. So I put salmon out and chicken, and they would eat the salmon all the way down and then eat the chicken after that. So I started putting 2 bags of salmon in there. Well, I went to Walmart and one time and they only had 1 bag of salmon. So I took 1 bag of salmon and 1 bag of chicken, put down there in the first 2 containers. When I get back from putting stuff down there, I put the trash in this huge trash can, one you put by the road, got the lids on it and stuff. They're really deep. As a matter of fact, when I reach down there, I can't even touch the bottom of it. Um, but I put the trash in it, and this trash can was empty at the time. The next day, I go out. Right by the door where I step in is the empty bag of salmon flavor dog food that I just put in their stuff right by my door. They were letting me know that they wanted salmon chicken. So, and the only reason I did it was because they were out of it at the store,
Hmm.
but they didn't know that. So they were sending me a message that they wanted salmon flavored dog food. I went and opened the lid. The chicken one was still in there. And I tried to reach the chicken one. I couldn't even touch it with my finger.
Wow.
So they have extremely long arms. I mean,
Hmm.
when I first made the gifting station down there, I disced up around it like 6 feet
Mm-hmm.
and put apples. This is before it was totally made. I put apples on top of the four corner posts because I wanted to get a good footprint of it. So I broke up the ground and all like that.
Yeah.
Now, the closest anything was 6 foot. I go down there, I'm driving down there and I see the apples are going. I'm like, yes, I'm going to have some really good footprints.
Mm-hmm.
I go down there and looking in the dirt, there's no footprints at all. Then I look in the grass next to it, and the grass on the corner, on at each corner was pressed down. I reached my arm out, and I've got long arms. I could barely reach halfway, and it had to have been the mature male or female
Yeah.
stand on that grass and reach over there and get the apples off the top without
Wow.
stepping in the dirt because they knew what I was trying to do and they did not want to give me prints like that.
Right.
But I started thinking their reach had to been 6 to 7 foot long to
Wow.
reach that far.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, can you imagine if you could train one to be a basketball player? You'd be a millionaire in a day.
You'd have a
Just
winning
have them run
team.
down there and stand under the basket, throw it up in the air. They'd reach and just dunk it every time.
Yeah. They'd
But
have a hard time finding shoes for him, though.
I'm sure somebody would make shoes for them if they could make that much money with them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Instead of Nike, they would instead of having Michael Jordan Nike, they have Bigfoot Nike.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was amazing the stuff that we were learning about them, and also um, I noticed on big boy trails, and I don't know what other people call them, but there were a couple of trails that they made. We call them down here big boy trails
Hmm.
because what they do is on the right and left hand side of the trail, the trees that they're going through, they break the branches high enough up that the biggest Bigfoot can run through there and not get touched by them to make a quick getaway.
Wow.
And we call them big boy trails.
Hmm.
Now, the ones that were down here, the limbs were broken off 15 to 16 foot up. Now, the other side of the tree, away from the trail, they still had the limbs on it. But the ones right there by the trail, all the limbs were broken 15 to 16 foot up. And you could tell they were old breaks.
Wow.
The people that came looking at the place, they showed me those. And um, they said they've been here for a long time. You see, these limbs have been broken,
Hmm.
not cut, but they've been broken for a long time.
Wow.
So, but they were the ones that showed them to me, and I'm like, wow, no wonder this
Mhm.
trail looked like it was so wide because all the limbs were broken,
Yeah.
the left and right.
Yeah.
Then,
Is it beaten down
then,
too? Does it look like is the grass gone there or?
yeah, there's no grass there because it's in the woods.
Uh,
Um, and the trees were big enough to shade everything else out.
mm-hmm.
But all the leaves and all the twigs and all the limbs that fell off of it was just smushed flat to the ground and like it had been compacted.
I see.
I mean,
Yeah.
so that's what confused me because what else has a foot that can step and smash everything on the ground? Even a bear's got the pad
Mm-hmm.
and not enough weight to crush everything. But everything I'm looking at, it was like an elephant had stepped there on everything and just smashed it down. And that's what confused me because first off, there wasn't any bear, but second off, everything was smashed down on the ground, and it just I've never known any animal to do that. That's
Yeah.
what confused me. But I knew if there was a Bigfoot around, this is their trail. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I put the apples there to begin with. Um, but I've learned a lot of stuff about them. They are very caring. They actually have warned us about things.
Mm-hmm.
If something happens that and we're not here, they will either warn us or try to scare the people away from the place.
Huh.
Um, we had a guy on the back porch. We were re-putting the boards on the back porch, and they had dropped it off next to the porch, and he was there that day by himself. Well, over there where the boards were, just past that was the woods that the one walked out of that hit the house. And they always watch, always watch. So one was over there watching him, and as he was walking to check out the lumber that they had dropped to make sure it was the right stuff, there was no wind, no rain, no nothing, and he said it sounded like a whole tree fell to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
It scared him. I mean, he called me and he goes, "Hey, look, is there something here I need to know about? Because there's no wind, there's no rain, and all of a sudden, sound like a whole tree fell in the woods." And I said, "No," I said, "just don't go in the woods. Everything will be fine." And he goes, "Well, what's in the woods?" I said, "It's nothing. Just stay clear of the woods." And I went in there and it had broke off a huge limb about 30 to 40 foot up, and it must have thrown it to the ground because it shattered into pieces after it hit the ground.
Oh.
So it didn't want him coming near their area or going inside the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there's all kinds of stuff like that that's done. We had to have our house re-roofed, and they dropped the stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
The guy went and showed them where to put it, and then he came back, and they had taken wood and stuck in it and pushed on it, trying to figure out what it was, and left huge handprints on it. So the guy calls me and he goes, "Has anybody been to the house?" And I said, "No, nobody's been to the house since y'all were there this morning with the stuff." He goes, "Well, there is a huge stick stuck in the roofing tiles, and there is a huge handprint on it. I mean," he goes, "it's 15 to 16 inches long.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a print this big."
Wow.
And I said, "No, not there." They were checking it out. Anything that's different or strange, they're going to go check it out. So they were trying to check it out and figure out what it was.
Yeah.
But all the time in the spring, I'll get fingerprints on my car where they touched it, and then the pollen attaches to the oily fingertip print. So I'll get their fingertip prints off the car. There's certain things they allow us to do, certain things they don't, but they're always watching us. Those blue jay calls that I was hearing was not blue jays, it was them communicating to each other. They can imitate any animal they want to, but they patterned us so much that if I go to Walmart or somewhere to get groceries and I bring stuff inside, I'll find prints by my car the next morning where they were looking in the bag to see what's in the back for them. They know that there's something in there. Now, I've told them, do not go into my car because if you do, I'm going to be really upset. So they don't go in the car, but they go look in the car. I can find their footprints every time I take bags inside.
When you ask them that, when you tell them that, or when you talk to them, do you do it like in your mind, or do you say it out loud towards the woods? Okay.
No, I do it mind speak.
Right.
I do it mind speak because I've learned that they can mind speak.
Yeah.
They can read my mind.
I agree. I'm sure they can.
Gifting, when I go down to the gifting station, it's always quiet. You can't hear any animals. It's quiet, so I know that they're there. Yeah. And there's certain, I've actually heard them coming down trees or walking towards the gifting station while I'm there putting stuff out because they want the best stuff that they like. And I guess some of them try to take a handful of it and take it off. And so they're walking before I'm even leaving. Now I do know that they don't want me to run up on them to try to see them. So all I do is say, "Hey, I'm still here, but I'll be leaving shortly." And then as I'm leaving, I'll just let them know, "Hey, I'm leaving. Y'all can go ahead and get whatever y'all want." And they'll come out and get it. They don't want me taking pictures. They don't want me taking castings of their footprint, and they don't want me recording them real close to where they are. Now, if I put a recorder 50 yards away, that's fine, but they don't want me put a recorder right there, because I tried to put one in the box at the gifting station and to put the little microphone under the lid that overlaps, so there's no way they could see it.
Uh-huh.
I could hear them walking up. I could hear them pull the cord out, and they put it on that pie plate with the sand and left it on the top of it, as if to say, I know what you're doing. Don't do that.
Right.
Anytime you
Wow.
do something and they don't like it,
Mm-hmm.
they will quit leaving their prints for 1 to 2 weeks. It's like they put me into timeout. And then I have to go say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and but they'll always like put me in timeout like I'm a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And um, so it's kind of funny that I get put in timeout at this age of my life, but it is what it is.
Right.
But it's just a way that they let us know that you did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, another example of that was, um, we have the pump down by the creek pumping water into the pond,
Mm-hmm.
and there's an old open sided barn down there. They used to make furniture in it because there's sawdust all over the floor, and we didn't know anything was underneath the sawdust. But one time he had to go work on the pump because it wasn't working right. And inside that barn's where the power switch is. He needed to cut the power off to go work on it. He couldn't get in there because there were hundreds and thousands of bees everywhere.
Yeah.
He thought they were yellow jackets because they were coming out of a hole in the ground that looked like the size of a bowling ball and a half.
Dang.
The tarp, there evidently was a blue tarp under the sawdust, and it had been pulled back to expose that hole.
Huh.
So he called and said, hey, I can't do anything. I said, well, just go buy some cans of spray. It's probably yellow jackets coming out of the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and kill them. So he did. He went and got 2 cans of spray, sprayed them, killed them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, evidently that was a no-no, because 2 days later, I found two 40-foot trees pushed into the pond. And I knew we had tried to do stuff and try to pull them out of the ground and stuff. We couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I knew that they had done it. So then I had to figure out what we did wrong. It took the side by side and a 4-wheeler, all the power it had to get them pulled out, just pulling them out of the pond.
Wow.
But I go over and look at the hole, and there it was. Over on one right corner was um, a piece of a honeycomb.
Mm-hmm.
So those weren't yellow jackets; those were honeybees
Right.
that had found their way into that hole and had a big honeycomb in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bigfoot knew it. And when I went to look at the tarp, sure enough, you could see spread out as far as my arms would go, where they had pulled the tarp back, and you could see the stretch marks where the fingers were on the tarp. They pulled it back, grabbed the honeycomb, and walked off to eat them some sweet honey.
Mm-hmm.
And they were mad because we just killed their honey production.
Oh, what a bummer.
So
Oh.
I know, but we didn't know because we
Yeah.
thought it was yellow jackets.
Sure.
But they have ways to let us know that we're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we tell them when they're doing something we don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they've never gotten into my car, but I did neglect to tell them don't go into the barn. We have a door that opens outward, and they had noticed that if I have extra food, I'll leave it in the back of the side by side and put it in the barn. And where we drive it in, we have it locked up, but there's a walk-in door that's open.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, I go out there and look at it one day, and there's a fist print in the door. I'm like, wait a second, that's a fist print.
Mm-hmm.
Who did this? I went and tried to push it. I couldn't even leave a dent in it. And then there were 2 fingertip prints on it. I tried to push it in, almost broke my finger trying to push it in, never could push it in. They were trying to push the door open rather than pull it open,
Right.
but they had figured it out because when I went in the barn, I saw the box of Nutter Butters had been open. No, they love Nutter Butters. That's their favorite thing.
They're my favorite too. I don't blame them.
They had opened Nutter Butters and ate them inside the barn. Um, so they had learned how to open the door up, but they were at first pushing it. So anyway, it's just things like that that let us know. They let have ways they let us know we're doing something wrong, and we let them know.
Yeah.
Um, we had one time that I had a little one looking in the window, and at this time, they were actually coming up to our window. We have a bay window, and they would come to the back side of it and look in and watch TV.
Oh,
Well, this night I'd fallen asleep watching TV. It was about 1 a.m., and we've got a little Yorkie.
mm-hmm.
And I woke up around 1 a.m. and I'm looking at him, and he's just staring at the window. Now, I will let you know that they play with our dogs. So, because I told them if they hurt the dogs,
Yeah.
that would be a trust breaker for us.
Mm.
And so they don't. They actually pet them and play with them.
Nice.
But the Yorkie was looking at the window, and I went and looked, and here was a little one looking in the front side of the window at the TV, and I'm staring at it. Now, I'd seen this one before because one day I came home at like 2 something in the afternoon. I took my mom to the doctor and was driving back, and I saw the outline. And this one was unique. It's jet black, but had a real light tan face, and it was shining as if somebody had armor all the dash of a car. And I took a picture, and when I zoomed in, I could see it. And I saw that's the face I'm looking at in the window. So what I'm doing is I go outside and I tell them, hey, look, we don't want you looking in the window at the TV. I don't go looking in y'all's bedroom. I don't want y'all looking in ours. And the only reason I did that is we were going to have relatives come stay with us, and they were going to be sleeping on the couch.
Oh, yeah, no.
So I didn't want them waking up and seeing these little faces looking in at them and freaking them out.
Yeah, exactly.
They never came back by the windows.
Oh.
But when I went and checked, I realized why that one was at the front window, because there were prints leading to the back window and into the front window. So there were 2 of them looking in that night. So I thought that was really neat that there was 2 of them that night. But just to let you know, I've seen 4. And just to clarify that, for me to call it a sighting, I have to see a face, hair, or know 100% it's no other animals. Now, I've seen shadows in the woods that I know are them. I've seen some things in trees that I zoomed in on to know it was them.
Would you agree that sometimes from the back they could be mistaken as a bear, or it could look similar to a bear? Like if you're thinking about the big black bears and stuff that we have up here, even the big brown bears.
They're different though. Their shoulders are wider.
Okay.
Bears kind of have their shoulders hunched over. Their shoulders are just wide.
So do you think
Bigfoot's shoulders is so wide, it's crazy.
It would be difficult to, what I'm asking is it would be easy to distinguish between a Bigfoot and a bear.
Unless it was a young Bigfoot. Some young Bigfoot, they kind of lean over and they're looking over a hill.
And they're thinner.
Right. But again, here we don't have any bears, so that makes it easy for me.
Right. Here we do, so we get a lot of questionable stuff. Yeah.
I had I've seen one juvenile that's 7 foot tall. And I know he's 7 foot tall, and I've seen his outline. He likes to hide behind a tree that splits, and his full head is above that split. But his shoulders are extremely wide. Wow. I mean, my shoulders are wide. But I went over there one time to look at it just to see, because it looked like it was about 6 inches taller than me. And sure enough, the top of my nose came to the you could see the top of my head
Mm-hmm.
at the split. You could see this whole head above the split.
Wow.
And where my shoulders were, you could barely see it beside the tree.
Huh.
But this one, you could see it like over a hand width outside the tree.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, its shoulders had to have been 5 foot wide. And
Wow.
this was a young one. This was only a juvenile.
Wow.
But yeah, so I'd seen him several times, but I don't call it a sighting because
Mm-hmm.
it's just a dark shape.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that tree, and I know there's nothing over there, and I've seen him 2 or 3 times, and I just know it's him because
Right.
I've taken pictures over there, and there's nothing there. So,
Mm-hmm.
and he usually does that. I see him the most in the winter when their leaves are gone, and I see it closer to dark. He's sneaking up to get some food because he sees me out there.
Right.
I think that's pretty neat that I see him, and
Yeah.
I'm sure he knows I'm looking at him.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But
Wow.
do you have any questions of me? Anything? Because I've seen so much stuff of different things, but is
Uh,
there any questions you want to ask me? But what's really crazy is they don't hide their footprints.
right.
So I go out there now, cameras take flat pictures,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at the footprints in 3D. So you can clearly see them pressed down in the grass, but when you take a picture of it, it doesn't come out that good.
Right.
So, but I can go out and see prints anytime I want. Now, taking a picture of it, now that's gets to be a little because it just doesn't show up as good.
Right.
But
And
it's really neat
you said
when
that
you can go out and find prints all the time.
heck yeah. Oh my gosh. That's a like that's on every Bigfooter's bucket list.
Yeah,
You know? Yeah. And most of us probably will never even get to see one our entire lifetime.
yeah, and I would tell you that there's something to it that somehow they mark you, or
Yeah.
somehow the others, even hundreds of miles away, know that you're safe
Yeah.
to show themselves to, or for them to let you know they're there.
I believe they are
Um,
extremely empathetic and they can sense that. That's normal because animals can sense, like dogs, for instance, they can tell if you're a dog person, they can tell if you're not a dog person. So,
right.
and I believe that they're the same way. If you have, good intentions and you have a trustworthy personality, then they're going to know that right away.
Yeah, the reason I know that is when I went on an expedition up in North Georgia the very first night.
Uh-huh.
Um, one of them pushed my foot back. Now it was real cold, so I left my shoes on.
Uh-huh.
But one of them pushed the ball of my foot back, and it woke me up. And I'm like, "Did my ball of the foot just get pushed back?" And I said, "It did." So then I'm kind of sitting up watching my foot, and there it is pushing my foot back, and I'm watching it push my foot back. I
Wow.
said, "Oh, okay, that's one of them." But then the morning before, they can do something to me that's kind of really weird.
Mm-hmm.
They It's called pinging me. Now sometimes I know when I'm being watched, but I don't know where they are. Sometimes I don't know that I'm being watched, but somehow they block it and don't let me know.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they ping me, and when they ping me, they show me the exact location where they're at. It'll stop me in my tracks, and I'll look dead at them. And
Wow.
they've done that several times. One When that same expedition, when we were putting up our tent, one pinged me at the top of a ridge, and I looked up there and saw it, and I'm like, "That's one up there looking at me." Now they've got a lot of bear up there, so
Yeah.
I went and got what I needed, went and put the stuff up and started going back to the car, and it pinged me again. And I looked, and it had moved. It had moved from behind one tree to behind a bush.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know that's got to be one up there. And I was like, okay. So I went and talked to the guy that was running it, which was a friend of mine. And I
Mhm.
said, "Hey, do y'all ever have Bigfoot right here where we're camping? Watch you?" And he kind of looked around. And he said, "Yeah, actually, we saw one this morning." I said, "You did? Where?" "Up on the ridge." And he was pointing at the same ridge I was looking at.
Mm.
And I said, "What color was it?" He said, "Jet black."
Mm.
And I never told him the color, but that's what I saw was jet black.
Wow, yeah.
He said, "Yeah, early this morning we got up and started cooking, and one whooped at us from up there. We looked up there and we saw it up there on the ridge." And I'm like, "Okay."
Nice.
Well, then that night on the expedition, I got pinged again, and there was one up in a tree. I didn't have a thermal binocular, but there was one up in a tree that was behind another tree, but it was in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And it stopped me in my tracks and looked. And he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "There's one over there in that tree across the field." I said, "It's not in the big tree at the end, but it's on the tree behind it." They looked and said they didn't see anything. And I said, "I'm telling you, it's right there in that tree on behind the other one." They looked again and saw it peek around. It was climbed halfway up in that tree and it was peeking around, and then they saw it. So they let me know exactly where they were.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's weird because it's like my brain says stop and look, but where I look is exactly where they are.
Right.
So it's just weird how they're able to do that. So anyway, the net behind that tree, they actually could see it the second time exactly where I told them it was, because it was climbed up the tree and it was leaning from behind it. They could see where it was pinging me. And it's really weird because somebody said, "Do you feel weird? Do you feel different?" And I'm like, "No, it's just like my brain tells me to stop and look somewhere."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing that I know that does has ever happened. And I also can tell you that it can go through windows, but it does cannot go through brick walls.
Really?
One day I was, yeah, one day I was going from the living room to get some refrigerator,
Mm-hmm.
and as I was walking by the window, one stopped me in the tracks, and I looked, and my wife said, "Well, what are you doing?" And I said, "One just pinged me down there about 70 yards away, but I can't see it. But it pinged me. There's a tree down there that splits, and it's behind that tree." So I went ahead, I kept looking, didn't see anything. I went ahead and got water behind the brick wall. Nothing happened. But as soon as I got to the window again, it stopped me dead in my tracks, made me look again. I said, "I'm telling you, it's down there right behind that tree, but for some reason I cannot see it."
Huh.
So the next day I go down there, and right behind that tree, the grass was matted down, and you could see 2 to 3 footprints exactly where I knew it was.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear meowing, we
Mm-hmm.
had a wild cat that decided to adopt us, and it's outside the door of the office saying it's hungry, wanting something to eat. So
Mm-hmm.
if you hear it crying, that's what it is.
Wow.
But it's a it's a beautiful cat and got the longest tail I've ever seen.
Aw.
But was completely wild and just decided it was going to adopt us.
Aw. That's
And so
sweet.
even the cats, even those animals know that we're
You're a
safe
safe
and friendly.
place. Yeah, you have a safe place there. Yeah.
Yep.
And you guys are friendly and caring and yeah, that's
So do
amazing.
you have any other questions on anything? I'll answer anything because a lot of people that do this for a living,
Uh-huh.
and I don't do it for a living. I just do it because I want to share what I'm seeing with others,
Yeah.
what we're seeing with others, because this is a rare occasion when they let you know that
Mm-hmm.
they're there and want to coexist with you, and they start showing you things that
Mm-hmm.
most people most people that go and they call them experts have gone out all their life, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them have never even seen one.
Right.
They see the prints, they hear the howls, but they've never seen
Mm-hmm.
one. But they're so-called experts.
Yeah.
I like I said, I don't think anybody's an expert because nobody really knows exactly where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'll answer any
Yeah.
questions
Well, I
because I'm not worried about being called stupid, crazy, or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't care. You
Now
know.
we try to keep the naysayers away. So, but I am curious as how does that make you feel? Like knowing that they put so much trust into you, and how does it make your wife feel as well?
You know, I don't. I've never thought of myself as special,
Hmm.
so I don't feel like I'm special, more special than anybody else.
Hmm.
I just think that it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's happened. I'm
Hmm.
trying to learn, do everything I can learn from it, and still protect them so that people don't try to shoot them. Because I've got some
Yeah.
neighbors that know about them, and they try to shoot them anytime they can. So
Oh man.
I've
Yeah.
I've told them, stay away from them.
Uh-huh.
Don't go down that trail near their house because if they see you, they're going to shoot at you.
Yeah.
So the fact I used to put apples on the tree and I do a tree knot just to let them know it was there.
Hmm.
One guy across on the other ridge, about half a mile away, I heard him say, "I told you they were back. I told you they were back.
Hmm.
We got to get rid of them. I told you they were back." And
Are they
so I never did
causing
a tree knock after that.
like they're not causing any trouble, right? They're not
No,
yeah, they're not doing
I don't.
anything.
No, I don't know, and I don't talk to them over
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know why they don't like them. Some
Yeah.
people just don't like it because they're different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe they had a dog try to attack one. Now, we'll tell you that if a dog tries to attack one of their clan members, they will
Mm-hmm.
kill the dog, and they would not only would kill
Mm-hmm.
it, but they will rip it apart to make an example out of it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We've actually heard that one time.
Wow.
Um, they maybe they got one of their goats or chickens sometime. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I don't know why they don't like them,
Are
but they've never done anything aggressive to us or
mm-hmm.
any of our animals. But I've told them it would be a trust breaker if they did. So
Yeah.
again, I'm trying to communicate with them and they understand me because
Right.
they've done it enough things to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example of that. We have some relatives that were here and they like to go fishing at the pond. So I decided I would carry them to the pond and we probably weren't going to fish, but I would feed flakes. The brim loved the fish flakes. So I was going to feed the brim some fish flakes. You'd see them come up and roll in the water and see how big they are. So we go over there. As we're starting to go down the trail to the pond, all of a sudden I hear lightning strike about 5 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where I'm at right there, there's some little white clouds, but there's not any storm I can see because the trees around. And I can feel the wind blowing towards the direction that that storm is, but I know enough to know that sometimes it can circle and go up high and push it this way. So I was a little leery of it, but I go over to the pond anyway. We're sitting over there feeding the fish. All of a sudden, about 2 miles away, there's a lightning strike, and I can look at the top of the trees and tell that the wind is pushing the storm towards us.
Mm-hmm.
There was a tree break, a tree branch break in a tree nearby,
Hmm.
and I heard it, and it was the relative of ours and her friend. She heard it and looked up there immediately, and I said, "We need to go."
Hmm.
Now, a form of their mind speak is they can put ideas in your head, thoughts in your head.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Are we in danger? Are we in danger?" I said, "No, but it's letting us know that lightning or the storm's about to hit here and we need to leave right now."
Wow.
So we got in the side by side, we left. As they said that they heard a lightning strike, I didn't hear one. As soon as we get into the house, the biggest downpour you had ever seen. It was like somebody was pouring buckets
Oh,
down outside.
wow.
So it was warning us that it
Mm-hmm.
was about to hit and we needed to leave.
Yeah.
And we did it. So they will warn us of danger because they know we don't like to go out in the rain. They
Sure.
will go out in the rain because they know that we don't want to go out in the rain.
Yeah.
But they've learned that they patterned us and know that.
Yeah. I wonder,
But it's,
like, do you guys have tornadoes down there at all? And have they ever indicated that, a tornado was coming or anything like that?
we do have tornadoes,
Hmm.
but the only time they've really warned us is like that instance when we were outside.
Hmm.
Usually, if there's a bad storm coming, we know far enough in advance and we don't
Hmm.
go outside. We'll be in a safe area
Yeah.
or near a safe area so that once we get that alarm that there's one on the ground, then we can go,
Get
to
it.
our safe area.
Right.
So they've never warned us because we've never been there. Now,
Hmm.
there is a story I would tell you, but it probably wouldn't be enough time where they know that when I'm around and I went to um, a house of a relative and I go on their back porch, look on their back porch, and then all of a sudden I'm start getting tree knocks. There's
Oh.
one back there knows I'm there and letting me know that it's there.
Huh.
Well, a tornado hit down their street really bad, tore everything up.
Uh-huh.
Um, her friend was at the house. She was still at work, but nobody could get to her because everything was flattened. So I go drive a back way and get in there, driving over all the power lines in the road, driving around poles, and go to get her out of there. And we go on the back porch, and luckily enough, her house hadn't been flattened because the big trees fell parallel to the house, not across the house.
Wow.
But I go on the back porch, and I heard in the back tree knots coming from where a big tree was down.
Oh, wow.
Um, and it kept going for a while, and um, I took her and left because going back there, there was huge power lines that were down in between me and that. And if I figured if one was trapped, that I couldn't get to it without getting electrocuted if there was stuff on it. But they, as big as that tree was that I saw back there that was down in the woods, there's nothing I could have done. They would have had to call some of their friends to get them out. And that's bothered me because I should have found a way to go back there to help. But I would think that if something was wrong and it was trapped,
Hmm.
that it would have did mind speak with me or scream or yell for help,
Yeah.
and it didn't do any of that. So I think it really was just, you know, tapping, trying to see if we were okay. Because
Right.
honestly, at night, well, if we're here in the house and the electricity goes off and it's at nighttime, they will start knocking in the woods around because all the lights are off to make sure we're okay. So I think that's what it
Hmm.
was doing, but it was just kind of a real strange situation because I felt like, I should have gone over there and checked, but I couldn't see a way to get over there. And then I didn't know what to do. And the person that was there was totally freaking out and on the verge of shock. And I knew I needed to get her out of there, you
Right.
know?
Right. Right.
So,
Wow. Amazing.
but
If I
it was
had
so,
if I had Bigfoots in my backyard, I think I was just thinking like how it would make me feel, and I would probably feel really joyful. Like it would just make me happy, to be
well,
able
you
to
just never know.
coexist with them.
You just never know because everybody's different. I'm so
Yeah.
proud of my wife because
Hmm.
they've started clear cutting a bunch of land near us, and it's
Hmm.
pushed several. There were 2 to 3 clans on that property because it was like a safe zone for them, and a
Wow.
lot of the little ones they've left here. I think they're trying to find another place to stay,
Yeah.
but they've left the little ones here, and some of the little ones are being more. I'm not going to say aggressive, but they're being more exposing themselves closer to the house. In other words, they've started
Oh,
tapping on the house and stuff, not hitting it, just
yeah.
tapping, letting us know that they were there.
Like
So my
like
wife's in here working on the computer one night, and I'm in there watching TV, and all of a sudden she hears a tapping on her window. She goes, "Babe, do you hear that?" And I'm like, "No, what?" So I would mute the TV.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't tap. As soon as I turned the TV back on, it would tap on our window again. And, but I said, well, baby, you scared? She goes, no, I'm not scared. They're just letting me know that they're there. And I was so proud of her because
Yeah.
other people would be scared to death. Here she has this window with the blinds down
Yeah.
right next to her. They're tapping on the window and she's not even scared. That made me extremely happy, but
Yeah.
um, because not many people would be that way.
Right.
There's a lot of people that would say, no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
You've intruded the safe zone,
Yeah, and I think that if people can't communicate, it really takes a lot to try to understand and communicate with other people if they don't speak your language, right? So like Bigfoot.
Right.
And with your, compassion for animals and nature and things like that, that just makes you more in tune. So other people aren't as in tune with nature, as you are. And she has you to guide her. So yeah.
Right.
It makes perfect sense to me that it would scare the shit out of somebody, and opposed to you guys, you guys are like, okay, this is cool, we can
Now,
coexist.
I will tell you now, I've had a couple of Jurassic Park moments where on one of those expeditions one time,
Mm-hmm.
I was laying down and there was not the night that my foot got pushed back, but it was the next night.
Mm-hmm.
And I was laying on top of this blow up mattress in the tent. And I had a bottle of water that was half empty. And I'm looking over there and I hear and feel through this air mattress that's probably 3.5, 4 foot thick.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the vibrations on the ground
Yeah.
of something coming, walking. I'm looking at the water bottle and I see the water bottle vibrating in the water like you saw in Jurassic Park when they
Yeah.
looked at the mud puddle and you see the water vibrating,
Uh-huh.
just like that.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, so it's right by my tent over here. What am I going to do? Am I going to turn around and look at it or am I just going to stay still? And I was like, I'm just going to stay still, let it walk on by,
Yeah.
which it did.
Non-threatening.
But
Yeah.
because I've heard too many people say a big mature male,
Mm-hmm.
you look at it and you're going to get scared. Now, I couldn't even look out anyway, but they didn't tell how big the shadow was. Probably the legs is all I would see, the shadow of the legs.
Wow.
But yeah, I call that one of my Jurassic Park moments. I've had one other that was like that. And now I understand, and that was on the property, but I understand why that was. So,
Yeah.
at the time I didn't know why it was, but now I know why it was. So it doesn't bother me. I know what was going on.
Right.
There
Right.
was I'll tell you that one, there was a big trail back there near the pond.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want me to go back there at all. They've double X'd me to let me know not to go back there.
Oh, wow.
And I was down there. I just had a stressful day. So I'm down there at the pond getting near dusk and I'm just there cooling off. The dove have already landed in the trees.
Mm-hmm.
They have a huge trail back there. All of a sudden, I'm probably 50 yards away and I'm in the side by side and I feel the ground vibrating through the tires and I hear something pounding back there on that trail. Then on each side of the trail, there's trees 30 to 40 foot tall. I see them shaking on each side of the trail. All the dove were flying off in front of it. And it's going down the trail and everything is leaving as it's going. And I'm thinking, how big does something have to be 50 yards away? I'm on a vehicle with tires and I feel the vibration in my seat near it.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, and I never carry a gun in there. I'll carry a shovel if I see a snake, and I'll carry a little knife if I need to cut something up.
Mm-hmm.
But even the little knife is, I mean, it's one of those ones that have the little screwdrivers and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Heck,
Like a Swiss
my
Army
arms
knife
are
or
long
something.
enough if they wanted to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
I could be sticking it out trying to cut them, and they just have their hand on my head, and I'd be 4 foot from even touching them. So,
Right.
that
Would
that
you
wouldn't do any
even
good.
get through the skin with something like that?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
finally, it got to where it was starting to turn my way down the trail. And I said, okay, well, I need to go ahead and go because I don't know how big this thing is. It's pushing trees on both sides. It's 30 to 40 foot tall. And
Mm-hmm.
I need to go ahead and leave. And I left. But I did find out 2 weeks later
Mm-hmm.
that there was a baby down there near the pond because I saw baby footprints that were 4 inches long and 2 inches wide. So
Mm-hmm.
what had happened was while the mom was taking care of the baby, they must have been real close nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And he was coming down there trying to get me to leave because one thing I have found out is when the big male, when they have a newborn baby, that mature mom,
Yeah.
the mature male will come down there and be there 3 to 4 weeks to help get food for everybody and protect them while the mom's taking care of the baby. So I think that's the
Mm.
situation. It was trying to get me to leave because the mom was taking care of the baby and he wanted me to get out of there and leave. So
Right. Right.
that's why he was doing it. But that's my second Jurassic Park moment.
Nice. Nice. I love it.
But
So we're running out of time, but I've got one more question for you. Are
okay.
are you going to watch Sasquatch Sunset?
Are you talking about the new movie that's
Yeah,
coming out?
yeah, yep.
I don't know because I hear that it does not have any talking in it, and I don't know that I can listen to
Mhm.
watch a movie without somebody talking.
That's
Um,
fair. That's fair, totally. Yeah, I heard they
uh,
only have like maybe 10 or 12 different noises that they make in the whole entire movie. So, yeah, a lot of
yeah,
grunting.
see, even at night, my wife will have the TV on,
Hmm.
and even at work, I'll have to be listening to a podcast or
Hmm.
something so that they're talking on it because if it doesn't, my brain's like, what's going on? Something's messed up, something's wrong. Now
Right.
I'll listen to the same podcast 4 times and never hear anything it says because I'm only doing it because it settles me because that's what my mind's expecting, not because I'm listening to hear what they're saying.
Yeah,
Um, so I'd probably my mind would probably be freaking out watching a movie and not hearing anything.
I get it totally. So your website, bigfoottalk.com.
We have a website that's bigfoottalk.com, and we
Mm-hmm.
also have a Facebook page that's bigfoottalk.com.
Mm-hmm.
The Facebook page has a lot of the stories in it. And there's over
Mm-hmm.
100 stories and different things, and I keep
And
everybody updated on what's going on.
a lot of pictures too. I love that. Yeah.
I do that. I try to take as many pictures as possible
Mm-hmm.
because it's a proof source. You know, I want people
Yeah.
to see what I'm seeing to understand what I'm putting out there. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just somebody making up stuff out of the blue. I'm seeing stuff and I try to show people what it is.
Yeah.
Now, the website actually has a lot of information about Bigfoot and a lot of things they do.
Oh, cool.
And it's also got some stuff off the Facebook page, and it's also got some stuff in there where I'm actually audible stories in it where you can hear us talking about some of the stuff that happened.
Nice.
So there's a lot of information in there,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of stories and stuff in it also. But I
Nice.
mean, it has information in there like if you don't want them around,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to, you think you have some around, how to tell, how to befriend them if you want to.
Oh,
You know, it's just
yeah.
got a lot of information in there of things that you can do.
Yeah.
Because I think they get a bad rap. A lot of times they
Yeah.
want you to leave an area because there's either a baby there or the male does not like people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they're trying to get you to leave and scare people off. So everybody thinks that they're these big, bad, dangerous animals. Now, I do
Mm.
believe there are some that have killed people in the
Sure.
past, um, but they're not all that way. I
Right.
mean, I think there's less of them that are that way than humans that are that way, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my opinion from seeing these, the ones that we're here with and the ones that I saw up in the mountains. We didn't have, and if a lot of people that study them,
Mm-hmm.
they will tell you right out. I've never had an aggressive moment with them. I have been bluff charged. Now,
Mm-hmm.
bluff charge is a really aggressive way of them saying leave now. Um, because they will be cracking stuff all the way up to you, and you don't know if you're about to get run over by an elephant or a buffalo or something, but they stop short and then they go the other way.
Right.
But everybody wants to, think they're just a mean creature that wants to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, as strong as they are, and they hunt by ambush, if they wanted to kill people, they could do it so quick and so easy because they're so big and strong. The only thing you would hear is the last step or two before they killed you. They can crush every bone in your body
Yeah.
with one blow. So if they wanted to do that kind of stuff, you would hear about it all the time, but you don't,
Right.
because it does not happen that often. They just usually are wanting you to leave.
Yeah. I feel like even if they are aggressive, they might do some aggressive things, but I don't think that they would hurt you unless you were like physically threatening to them, you know?
I can tell you there's things that they don't want you to do.
Yeah.
Number one, they don't want you to pull a gun and shoot at them. They
Right.
don't want that. They know what guns are.
Mm.
Um, they don't want you to shoot one of their clan members because they will protect them, just
Mm-hmm.
like we would if somebody shot somebody in our home.
Sure.
Um, they don't want you throwing things back at them. They throw things to try to get you to leave, but if you throw it back at them, they kind of take that as being aggressive towards them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to do that. I know somebody that did that on an expedition. They threw something back at them, and they threw a stick and hit them on the foot.
Mm-hmm.
Say, because they're deadly accurate with what they throw. And
Yeah.
then the last thing is, if you're a male, and this is kind of a weird situation, if you're a male, don't pee in the area where there's a big male and him be around, because he will come up and let you know that this is my territory.
Right.
I guess our genes are so close to theirs
Mm-hmm.
that it's like he's got his territory marked, and they take that as us marking their territory
I
as
was
ours.
literally just saying that in our group the other day about don't pee in the woods
Right.
because they might take that as an aggressive kind of action, you know? It makes perfect sense to me.
We've got not a perfect thermal picture, but we have
Mm-hmm.
a guy that went and peed on a tree.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was testing out that she got this new thermal monocular that's really good, and she was looking all in the woods. Then all of a sudden, one shows up,
Oh.
coming up to that tree because he caught a whiff of it. And then
Ah.
two or three other people went and saw it.
Uh-huh.
And it peed on the ground on a tree right by itself to mark it his territory again.
Oh, wow.
But you could see it on the thermal monocular where it peed on the ground, and you could see its outline. You could see
Uh-huh.
they had it on red hot, so you could see all the heat from the chest and the outline of the head and where the eyes were. It was
Wow.
really neat. But the only way I believe we got to see it was that guy peeing on the tree. He took that as him marking on his territory, so he came in to remark his territory.
Right. He put a stop to that quick, didn't he?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So,
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with me, and um I I hope that we can talk again because it sounds like you have a lot more experience to talk about.
yeah, there's a lot of their, what do you call it, paranormal stuff that
Yeah.
they've shown me.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
and I can tell you how they've done it, and
Hmm.
it's really,
Yeah.
really wild. They have the ability to do things that we can't imagine how they do it. I'll
Right.
just put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an area I'm just starting to explore. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah. Well,
So, all
thank,
right. Well,
yeah.
thank you, and
Thank
I
you.
hope everybody enjoys this. And
Yeah.
if they want to ask questions or have any questions, they
Mhm.
can go to the Facebook page, bigfoottalk.com, and Facebook Messenger me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be glad to answer or help out anything that they want to ask.
Awesome. And you also they can contact you through bigfoottalk.com, the website as well, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Neal at bigfoottalk.com.
Okay.
Um, and they can email me and I can email them back through that also.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome and have a good night.
Thanks, you too, Neal.
All right,
All right.
bye bye.
Bye.